Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Top 5 MSP Marketing Predictions for 2020. I'm Amber Noble, a marketing specialist at Barracuda MSP, and I'm happy to be moderating today's session. Today, I'm joined by Angela Leavitt, founder of Mojo Marketing. As an accomplished entrepreneur and speaker, Angela has become a frontrunner in the telecom and IT marketing industry. During today's educational webinar, Angela will reveal her top predictions for the upcoming year. Before we get started, some brief housekeeping. During the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to share them using the questions or chat panel to the right of the Zoom webinar screen. At the conclusion of the webinar, you may be prompted to complete a brief polling survey. Please take a moment to tell us what you think so we can continually improve the content and quality of our online events. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Angela to begin today's presentation. Take it away, Angela.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here with you again, and really excited about this topic. I have a lot of new, very fresh, interesting information to share with you guys today, so thank you for taking your time out. I know it's a really busy season right now, so close to the holidays, but hopefully this is very well worth your while. I would just add a couple things to the housekeeping. Yes, totally happy to stay on as long as needed to answer any questions. If you tweet, feel free to tag me, Mojo Marketing, and then also Barracuda, of course, and always happy to share the slides and anything else that we'll cover today. Just a little more background. I've been in sales and marketing for going on 20 years now, which is like kind of hard to believe and difficult to say, but worked with over 200 telecom, IT, and cloud services companies, especially during the last 12 years that I've been in this industry. And I've been very fortunate to speak across lots of different events focused on the telecom and IT space. As far as Mojo goes, we are a marketing firm. We're focused exclusively on this space, so everything that I share with you today comes directly from our experience and research working within telecom, IT, and cloud services. And finally, this is just a little bit of a sampling of some of the companies that we've worked with over the last 9 years that we've been in business. So enough of that. Before we get into the predictions, I wanted to share with you guys some really interesting information that was published recently by Gartner, all about the B2B buyer and what is happening in B2B buying. So I'm going to just jump right in. B2B buying is changing pretty drastically. There were a lot of different points I could have pulled out of this article, but I pulled out two, and this was one of them. And what I want to point out here is what you see. People are spending 17%, only 17% of their time in meeting with potential suppliers in the buying cycle. You can see here what they are doing with the rest of their time, researching independently online, researching independently offline, meeting with their buying groups, and then other. So lots more time being spent within the research phase than with you, right? And so something to be very aware of, very cognizant of as we move forward. And everything that we do in marketing is going to have a direct impact on sales. The other thing that's really interesting here is you see they're specifically referencing the buying group. So the buying group is the new buyer persona, right? So part of the article shared that between 6 and 10 people today are typically involved in a buying decision. So this needs our attention, and we need to start thinking about not just the behaviors of the individuals within the group, but also the behaviors of the group itself. So the second thing I wanted to share with you is this is what they have now outlined as the buyer journey, right? And so this is a big cluster with a lot of things going on. You can see they've identified like 4 key jobs related to a buying cycle, problem identification, solution exploration, requirements building, and supplier selection. You can see there's so much going on here, and it's no longer a linear process. What I did is added a couple of stars here to help you see the activities that would typically fall to the marketing department or your marketing person, right? And so as you can see here, it's completely interspersed within the buying process. So lots of great information here, and the key takeaways that I got from this article are here. And there's a link for the article. Again, happy to share the slides with you so you can look it up yourself. But buyers are now buying in groups, so we need to understand how those function. The buying process is no longer linear, as we just saw. So it's not that marketing does its job to generate the lead and then hands it over to sales, and then sales kind of takes it from there. As we just saw in the graphic, marketing was interspersed throughout the entire process. And so that means that more than ever before, sales and marketing departments, sales marketing leaders, sales marketing people need to be completely connected at the hip in order to make this whole process work and function better for you. So hope you found this as interesting as I did, and definitely check out this article. There's a lot more research that they did and a lot more insight that they are giving to the buying process. And of course, as marketers, as salespeople, it's our job to really understand how people buy, how that's changing, and adjust our approach accordingly, which is where the 5 predictions I have to review with you come out of. So just an overview of what we're going to cover today. Sales and marketing have to align. They have to work better in sync than ever before in order to accomplish what we want to. Thought leadership is going to take a more importance than ever before. Buyer enablement, if you haven't heard that word or aren't familiar with it, we're going to talk about that today. But I predict that will be the new buzzword that we start to hear in the next year. Data will drive nearly all decisions. So more than ever before, we're able to track everything and see what is affecting everything. And so data-driven decisions will be the norm. And then automation, AI, softwares are going to revolutionize how we accomplish this, and not only that, but how we communicate. So kind of we'll be tying all those things together. So these are the 5 I have to review with you. So first is that sales and marketing will align, and if some of you were on the last webinar I did with Barracuda, we dedicated the entire webinar to this topic. So I'm just going to hit on a couple of points, like the highlights that came from that presentation. But most companies have a sales and marketing staff that looks something like this, right? Where sales and marketing are at odds with each other. The one blames the other, these leads are terrible. Marketing needs to do a better job. And then the marketing side is these salespeople are lazy. They don't appreciate all the things that we do, and that they're not following up fast enough, and that's why the leads are bad. But this really needs to go away, and something that is worth a lot of effort and a top priority to ensure that you're aligned. This misalignment is so costly to companies. Loss of productivity, wasted efforts, costing companies $1 trillion a year. 79% of leads never convert to sales, and this is the one that just really kicks me in the gut. That of the leads that get passed over to salespeople, 73% are never contacted. We're going to talk about how we fix that and get that number to 100%. The good news is that if you put some intentional effort here and ensure that you have good alignment between your sales and your marketing staff, that you are going to grow much faster, close more deals, and achieve higher revenue. So again, If you are a company that has, separate sales and marketing efforts, departments, people, time to, really look at that and get them married together. Real briefly, high level, this is kind of step-by-step how you do that. The most important part is that you are in alignment with your strategy, that it's not that the sales team is off in one room building the sales strategy and the marketing team is off in the other room, and then, hoping it works together. The sales and marketing strategy should flow directly from your overall growth plan for your business. So working on those things together, having a clear understanding of who we are targeting, who are those different buyers, what are their titles, who are we prioritizing, what is the sale that we want to focus on, and then also agreeing on definitions. So what is a marketing qualified lead versus a sales qualified lead? What is the process of handoff? When does sales get engaged? When does marketing get engaged? Just laying out that entire plan will help you get started. Then you're going to, execute your plans and make sure that your processes are lined up, that you've got the right tools. And this is something I'm going to talk a little more later about, but if your sales and marketing teams are using different softwares to track what they are doing, you are missing out on a lot of data that you could have that could be very, very powerful for you. So I highly encourage companies to take a look at that, and that the marketing software you're using, if it's connected, if it has a CRM component and everyone can be playing in the same sandbox, that's where we're going to get the most effective data that will affect our decisions and allow us to see exactly what's happening at every step of the buying process. Obviously, analyzing and measuring, so collecting all that data. Again, if you're using the same tool, that data is like much more readily available. If your CRM is separated from your marketing software, then there's a little bit more legwork that needs to be done. But taking a look at analyzing your data, looking at your wins and losses, doing those post-mortem discussions, like, okay, like this huge account came in, this one's awesome. Like, what were all the steps? Like, how did they get in? What different touch points did they engage with? And then same with the losses. And if we can assess like why those happened, what could we have provided the buyer that would have maybe influenced them in a different direction? Having those open conversations about those things is very effective. And finally, just communicating regularly. Again, like attaching at the hip, regular meetings where sales understands what's going on, what marketing is working on, and vice versa. Marketing people sitting in on sales calls, doing some shadowing, hearing directly from potential customers what their pain points are. And of course, when you have wins, celebrating them together. And if you do all of these things, your sales and marketing teams will be much more connected and much more effective. And so they will be best buds and very happy. You will be happy because your sales have increased massively. Prediction number 2 is that thought leadership is going to, we're seeing just overall trends, thought leadership being more and more important. Why? It's really interesting. When you consider, everyone's heard this phrase, right? Like, no one ever got fired for hiring IBM, right? Why is that? Because they're trusted. They're the big name brand. They've built this brand equity and this idea that like, hey, this is taking away my risk, right? If we think about the people who are making IT decisions, many times the budgets involved are very, very large. And so if they make a mistake, it's their neck on the line, right? And so we have to think from their perspective, like, okay, when they've got thousands and thousands of choices to put their business, to put their managed services business, their IT business, how do you stand out, right? How do you build trust? And a big way to do that is by having concerted efforts toward thought leadership, establishing yourself as a true leader and expert within whatever niche you're specialized in, or in any way that you can shine a spotlight on yourself. The whole purpose of this is to build trust. There was a really interesting article that studied that LinkedIn did all about thought leadership. And one thing that was interesting is they kind of pitted the marketers against the executives. So, they were asking marketers, well, how effective do you think this thought leadership is, these initiatives that you're working on? And if you go to that link, you'll see many of them said like, oh, I don't know, they're probably 40 to 50% effective. However, when asking the decision makers and the C-suites on the receiving end, asking how it affected them, their trust massively increased, right? 80%, 81% saying like, yes, my trust in this organization increased massively due to thought leadership. Thought this one was great too. 37% business decision makers, 41% of C-suite executives are saying they invited someone to participate in an RFP after viewing thought leadership, right? So huge numbers here, right? Like where you maybe weren't in the running, and by putting some effort here, opening up the door for potentially 40% more opportunities, right? So some really effective strategies here being put in place. So if you are able to position yourself and your company as a thought leader, this removes the risk, right? So, everything that we're doing from your website, your social, any marketing activities you have, if you have that kind of in the back of your mind, it's like, how is this helping me establish thought leadership, and kind of viewing those things through those lens, and ensuring that this is an important piece of your marketing strategy to establish yourself as experts. This is how you can help yourself stand out. I would say one tip on this too is that this is easier to do if you do focus on a niche or a vertical, and that doesn't mean that you can't service others, but it means that it will be easier to stand out if you say, hey, we are the MSP for the dental industry, and here's why. Look at all the success we've had within this particular industry. That's only going to help you to establish that thought leadership a little faster and more effective, right? So just a little tip there. Prediction number 3 is that buyer enablement is going to be the new buzzword. So if you have not heard of this, I suggest doing some Google searching and thinking about buyer enablement. But basically what it is allowing a buyer to self-direct through the buying process without needing you, right? So provisioning of information that supports the completion of critical activities necessary to make a purchase. If you think about this, like in society in general, we're becoming more and more, we're do-it-yourselfers, right? Like we don't want someone to even like scan our groceries for us anymore, right? We want to do it ourselves. We don't want a sales guy to sit down and tell us everything about a potential car we're about to buy. We want to, read reviews and watch videos, and, when we need the sales guy, we'll go and test drive the car, right? But we want to do things ourselves, and this trend is going to continue to come our way just because of, the proliferation of information available to people. So what does this mean for you? How do you do this? How do you enable buyers? Well, the biggest thing you can do is to turn your website into a virtual salesperson. And what's great about this is that your efforts here are vastly multiplied, right? So you do some of these things once and they just exist. So that's really great. So one thing, and I know this can be sticky sometimes when speaking with MSPs, is that you have some pricing and packaging info. And I know this is sticky because, for one, much of what you do is highly consultative, and so you don't necessarily want to lead with price and potentially have someone not interested because of that. But think about the last time you were interested in someone's services and there was not even any ballpark pricing available, you know, and how that felt. There is an opportunity here because, you know, our industry in general lags on some of these initiatives, that if you are able to get some pricing and packaging, even just some starting at sort of things, I'm going to show you one on the next slide, this is going to, you know, leapfrog you ahead of the other companies who are not doing that. And if given the choice, all other things being equal, where one company is transparent about their pricing and packaging and the other is not, buyers are more likely to go with the company, and at least continue considering the company who has put their pricing and packaging information out there. So I know this is a sticky one, but something to think about. It is, and I will say it is coming, right? It's only a matter of time before everyone's pricing will be on, you know, available to people. So you might as well embrace it now and get ahead of your competition, who will be dragging their feet on this for the next couple of years. Other things that you can create to help with buyer enablement are, you know, buying guides, comparison worksheets are great, comparison charts, frequently asked questions. So, you know, these are really easy to come up with. You know, just take some notes from your sales calls and, like, what are people asking in the sales process? And one thing I like to talk about here too is that some people, when they see this, think this is just one page on your website, right? A frequently asked questions page. That's one way to do it. But what we're seeing more and more is that there can be frequently asked questions sections throughout your website, depending on what, you know, what page they're on. So, for example, if we're on a managed IT page on your website, why not have a little section of the 5 most common questions as it relates to managed IT? Same thing on, like, your managed security page, right? So addressing the questions that may be lurking in the potential buyer's mind and making this, like, very easy for them. We're seeing a trend toward chats and chat bots. Most people are very comfortable now interacting with a chat bot, even though they know it's a bot. So I think just having some creativity and some availability. This is another thing. People's patience is pretty low, and another behavior that's changing, right? When I want information, I want it now. I don't want to send an email and wait, you know, 24 hours for someone to respond to me or to set up an appointment, right? So I want this information right now. And so if you have someone that can either man a live chat or a chat bot that can point people in the right direction, you are making your buyer's experience better. Case studies, of course, you know, helping with that thought leadership, helping to prove that you have the expertise you claim, and any time that you can use a third party to tell people how wonderful you are, it will carry much more weight than if you're saying it yourself. And finally, scheduling tools. So this is another thing we're starting to see a lot of trends around that. Again, I don't want to email you and wait for you to respond and us to try to figure out how we connect. If I want to talk to you, give me a resource right on the web page to schedule a demo or schedule that call. And there's many tools today that make that super easy. So really your goal is to create this frictionless experience so that people can guide themselves through the sales process. They can get you all the way to that consideration stage. Remember that the first stat that we looked at, they only want to spend 17% of their time with you. So that means you need to answer all their questions and get them to that point to where they've got it narrowed down between you and maybe a couple others, and you've done that by providing them all the resources and tools that they need to get themselves there. So this was all about buyer enablement. Now, I tried to do some research and find an MSP that that kind of had some of this pricing and packaging down. And what I found instead was someone who spoke about this a couple years ago and suggested a breakdown something like this, right? And so even if this isn't your pricing and even if your packaging looks different, what's great about this is that, again, from that trust building standpoint, being able to look at this and say, okay, like this makes sense. They've put some thought into this. We're also playing off the familiarity people have with the 3-tiered package system, right? And so this is something, people are very used to this. Okay, I've got, gold, silver, and bronze. By you adopting a similar approach, you're loosening that friction and you're making them comfortable and saying like, okay, I get this. There's 3 different options, and of course, this could be just starting pricing, but again, something to think about. Not seeing it out there a whole lot, but this is the direction that people are going in. And so if you can jump on this and provide this experience for people, my prediction is that you will see an increase in leads, an increase in interest because it's so helpful, right? Okay. Prediction number 4 is that data will start to drive nearly all decisions from a sales and marketing standpoint. Never in the history of the world have we had more data, right? And from just the consumer side or the human side, there's a lot of issues like that people bring up around this, and they feel a little bit uncomfortable around how much big data knows about you. On the flip side, it is a sales and marketer's dream come true, right? Because we used to have to spend $20,000 for a TV spot and hit a bunch of people who are not relevant to us, and now we can spend a fraction of that and laser target a message directly to a potential buyer for us. This is another area that you could spend an entire hour going into all the different types of data, but we can see exactly what people are doing now, right? Where they're going on the website, what they're clicking on, what they're skipping over, how much time they spend in different sections, what they're engaging with, what their favorite content is, like how they're engaging in socials. So just supreme visibility into behaviors, right? And having this visibility enables us to finally see exactly what's working, where there could be some breakdowns in the process, and where to focus. And with that information, we can be really effective in our strategies. So I'm going to share an example with you. There's a client that we began working with on some campaigns about 3 months ago, and we did some averaging out. This is data we just pulled out yesterday. So you can see over the last 3 months that we've worked with them, they've had nearly 4,000 average visitors per month to their website. We've seen 34 leads come in average per month. Those leads turning into opportunities, and then customers. So as you can see down below, this is the percentage conversion. So visitor to lead, a little less than 1%. However, our lead to opportunity conversion is huge, right? So what this is telling us is that, wow, like these leads that we're generating here through our activities are pretty high quality, right? The opportunity to customer, however, is very low. And so this is something that's interesting, and it is causing us to now have some discussions with the client and say, okay, you told us when we onboarded with you that your close ratio was about 50%, right? And that, for every client you get, potential client you get in front of, you close half of them. Well, we can see that some of them are still in progress, right? And that some of these things are not going to happen within a 3-month time span. However, this is a drastic difference, right? A 50% close ratio to like less than 6%. So now with this data, that this is just one example of like very high level information. Now we can really focus where we need to, right? And say, okay, what is happening between the opportunity and the lost sale? How are we losing them? Why are we losing them? Are they getting to proposal phase? Like what's happening here? And this also tells us like, hey, if we turn up the web traffic, likely we're going to see more leads and more opportunities. But before we spend money to do that, let's fix the biggest hole, which is between the lead, or between the opportunity and the close, right? So again, just one example of how having the right data to analyze can influence everything, and the granularity we can get like down to the very specific email and call to action and which ones are working is kind of mind-blowing, but very, very exciting at the same time. Finally, prediction 5 is that automation will continue to play a bigger role in our sales and our marketing efforts, and also our communication. So we talked a little bit at the very beginning of the hour about all these leads that are not getting followed up on, right? And so one way that you can solve this problem is by implementing marketing automation software and having it connect to your CRM, so that anytime a lead is generated, we're not waiting for the salesperson, that some automation is going out, and it can look like it's coming from the salesperson, right? Like very, very text-driven sort of emails, but being able to automate that process can, just that one thing can make a huge difference, right? Ensuring that every single lead that is generated gets a follow-up within 15 minutes, right? That's one of millions of benefits of having a CRM and marketing automation software working for you. I've listed some examples here: HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, Hatchbuck. So we've worked with all these kinds of tools. You just cannot get better insights into the behaviors. So the grid I was just showing you a minute ago, that came from having a tool like this, right? That one specifically was HubSpot. So we're working with the client on the marketing side of their HubSpot. The sales team is using it as their CRM, and that is what enables us to see exactly what's happening from lead to close. Setting these things up is time intensive, of course, and takes some strategy and takes a little bit of elbow grease to get these things going. However, once it's set up, it really does act as an additional headcount for you. And the biggest benefit that I find, besides having all the data in one place, is the ability to implement automated nurture campaigns. So from our discussions with other MSPs and IT service providers, one thing that we hear over and over again is that many leads are only touched once, or once a deal kind of goes to the wayside, they're never reached out to again, right? So this is an opportunity to put some campaigns in place that will automatically reach out to these people on a cadence that you set, and make sure that that you're keeping it in front of them. Also, this is an area where, again, most companies are not doing this, so it's a great way to stand out from your competition, right? So if no one's following up with them, but you are, you're going to build that relationship over time and eventually get more sales. Other tools that you can use from an automation perspective is Zapier is really good for connecting different platforms together and pushing information back and forth. So if the idea of getting your sales and marketing teams on the same platform just gives you like super high anxiety, there might be a way to look at a tool like Zapier and push information back and forth, right? So maybe you're on Salesforce for your CRM, but you want to use HubSpot for your, for your marketing automation. Then there are plugins, there's native integrations, and there's other ways that you can push that information. Again, ideally, everybody's kind of playing in the same sandbox, but at the very minimum, having information shared will give you greater visibility. And finally, we talked about this too, but calendar tools. This is another big one that we hear, that trying to create that frictionless experience of just stop with the emailing back and forth 5 times trying to find a time to meet. Set up a calendar tool and allow people to schedule with you when it's convenient for them, and it just saves everybody a lot of headache and makes everyone a lot happier. So highly recommend that. The goal here is that these things, again, with the right amount of setup, they work for you while you sleep, right? So once the automation is in place, then these things are just kind of happening, and you just check in and take the temperature of your results and maybe make some tweaks, but you've got everything set up, and that's awesome. 80% of marketing automation users saw increases in leads. So it's not so much about creating interest anymore. It's like, once we have a little bit of interest, how do we stay in front of them, and how do we nurture that interest? And that's what an automation tool can help you do. This is just one example of an automation that we have had set up in our tool for the last couple of years. So anyone who is on our website that fills out a form that is sort of a request a consultation form, within a few minutes they will receive an email that looks like I typed it out, and I did type out the original email, so that is me and my voice. And it says something like, hey, thank you so much. I'm excited to get to know you. I want to make sure our time is very well spent. So if you could take 2 or 3 minutes to fill out this survey, that would help me get more familiar with you. They click on the survey, they fill out the survey. The things that they are filling out are telling me who they are and being appended to their contact record. So for example, one of those questions is, who are you? Are you an MSP, a VAR, a carrier, a telecom agent, an equipment dealer, other? When they select who they are, that goes onto their contact record, right? So later, when I go to pull a list of all my MSPs, these people have done some of the work for me, right? And so it's really, really helpful that they're kind of filling out all the information about themselves. And it does allow me to come to the call a little bit more prepared. Once they fill out the survey, they get another email that says, thank you so much for filling out the survey, really appreciate it. I'd love to speak with you. Please click on this link to set up the time that is most convenient for you. And they get a link to my calendar, and it happens probably once or twice a week that appointments show up on my calendar, and I then go in and look at who they are and the survey that they filled out, and I get a really good sense of what they want to talk about. And then this is me just super happy that all this happened without any manual effort on my part, right? So this is, again, just one example of how you can use a tool like this to really optimize your productivity of your sales team, your marketing team, and set some things up to ensure that people are getting contacted quickly, right? So hopefully that was helpful. This is some other things that happen in the automations. Once they fill out the survey, you can see their contact record, changes from the status is set to prospect, the temperature is set to warm, it assigns me as the sales rep, it creates a deal, that goes into my deal section, and then it assigns me a task to follow up, right? So all of this is being done without anybody touching it. This is just kind of following the rules that we have laid out for it. So with that, I want to just recap what we talked about today. I hope this information has been helpful, and as I said, happy to hang out and answer questions for as long as needed. But the biggest trends that we're seeing are listed here. We need sales and marketing to work a lot better together, to get in alignment, to reduce some of this waste that's happening between them. Companies who are prioritizing thought leadership, we predict will continue to rise to the top, right? This is a very competitive space, and there's a lot of choices. So you have to make sure that you are setting yourself apart. And I would say, I feel like Barracuda does an excellent job of that in the things that they're doing, similar to what you're attending right now, right? This is an example of Barracuda, bringing in different types of experts to educate you, and this is something not many companies like Barracuda do, right? So they're doing something to establish themselves as experts, bring you all in, and it's an excellent strategy. We want to ensure that our buyers have the least friction possible in working with us, in trying to buy from us. So concerted efforts around buyer enablement will continue to rise. We will, as long as you're using the right tools, have so much more data that will drive nearly all of your sales and marketing decisions. So this is a really exciting time to be in sales and marketing because we have so much visibility into what people are doing. And so really encourage you to take a look at that and take advantage of some of the tools that will allow you to measure everything from start to finish. And finally, many of those same tools can help you automate, right? And that will revolutionize, the time spent in follow-up, ensuring that people are continually being warmed up, and just act as an additional headcount salesperson on your team. So that was all I had for today. Can I turn it back over to you, Amber, for Q&A?